From the West End to Little Pakistan, The Confessions of a Serial Killer. This is a documentary based on evidence obtained from public records, describing the brutal unsolved deaths of several neighborhood drug dealers during the height of the crack cocaine epidemic in the late 80s and early 90s. Most of the murders are unsolved cold cases, all carried out by the same Muslim assassin, Leonard Holland, aka Shahid Abdul Rodman, and ironically, the self-proclaimed bodyguard of Jamil Al-Amin. He was formerly known as H. Rap Brown, a radical black leader in the 60s. He was also a member of the Black Panther Party. Jamil was the most powerful man in Atlanta's West End neighborhood. Allegedly, he controlled all the Muslims that he moved in his Muslim community during the time of the killings. This documentary reveals all the facts put into the book From the West End to Little Pakistan, Atlanta Missing and Murdered Drug Dealers. When Holland sat down with Render, the hitman spent 8 hours detailing his life of crime and his connections to Al-Amin. According to a transcript of the confession, Holland told the detective,
I got to hope and pray that you're able to handle what I'm going to tell you and not look at me like I'm some parasite and not look at me like you deserve the death penalty. I have been a monster, sir. I have been a monster, sir.
Did I know Black James? Yes, I knew Black James very well. I know his whole family. I knew his wife, his daughter, and his son. Black James was from the West End. I known him all my life. He used to ride a bicycle, old black man with a mouthful of goals. I never knew he was a hustler until I started hustling. But Black James owned a whole lot of the West End. He had a whole lot of property. He was a kingpin. Yeah, Black James was definitely a kingpin. One of the first kingpins that I realized, hey, that's a real kingpin. But you wouldn't know it unless you knew him.
Would I consider James Farrell's kingpin? Yes, that was his occupation.
Shahid was out before he shot Cornelius in his head. And before he went to jail, before he became a federal informer, before he went to jail for killing Black James, before Tommy got murdered, before all them murders, when Shahid was first around, we were selling all that dope. They used to inquire about spots around the neighborhood that sold drugs. And actually, we know the guys, this, that, and other. If we didn't say we know, if somebody was saying, 2-3 days later, you might see it on the news. They might be bringing a lot of different bodies out there. And that was a trend back then. I don't know if they caught up on all them murders.
Do I feel James Farrell and Thomas Jones' murder was connected? Yes, it was connected because, like I said, he took the old man's stuff. The old man wanted his 7,000. And after Tommy murder, the old man stopped coming around so much because he was having arguments with a guy in the neighborhood. And the guy was threatening him a lot. Yeah, same guy, it was all that related. How far apart was their deaths? I say it was real close. It was real close. And I heard the guy say, you owe me 7. Black James said, nah, motherfucker, you 7 at me. He said, nah, motherfucker, it don't work like that. Don't you end up on your face next. So I ducked down. I said, wow. And he threatened him. He said, don't you be next. How long after that argument he was dead? I said, maybe a week later. Was James Farrell murder ever solved? I don't know. They locked the guy up for it. A guy did 11 months for it. And then he got out. And then back in 1992 of January, they came back and rearrested the guy and said they had a witness. And yes, your guy did 28 years for James Farrell murder.
Kennedy J. Keller, black male. Date murder occurred, November 10th, 1991. Location of murder, 553 Holderness Street. The weapons used, .38 Special or .357 Magnum caliber, Smith & Wesson, Luger, Llama, or Taurus. Case summary. Kennedy was seen entering a known drug house located at 528 Holderness Street, attempting to purchase crack. Witnesses state several black males accosted the victim. Shortly after, the victim walked down the street and was gunned down by 3 black males driving a brown or rust-colored Cadillac. These black males are known to frequent the area. Analysis. The Kennedy Keller homicide is believed to be related to the other West End homicides for the following reasons. Keller was killed in the same geographic location as the others. Keller was involved in the drug business. The vehicle identified in the Keller homicide was reported to have belonged to Clarence Poon, who was a victim of a November 24th, 1995 homicide.
But that was before they just did all the killing on Holdings and they killed Tommy. Before they did that hit right there, and all of them ended up going to jail. So if you check the records, when they went to jail for that, the murder stopped for a long time.
James Cornelius Nelson and Bernard Smith, black males. Date murders occurred, January 14th, 1991. Location of murders, unknown. The weapons used, unknown. Case summary. Cornelius was shot 3 times in the head and killed. Bernard was shot in the jaw, but survived. Additional details. The defendant testified for the state against the co-defendant and admitted his involvement and pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter for shooting Cornelius James Nelson with a handgun on January 14th, 91. Al Dixon heard the confession and the lead detective is S.A. Cumberworth. Motive, robbery and revenge. Suspect, Leonard Holland. Case, closed. Transcript from court. The court. Tell me what the transaction number is. Mr. Pinion. The transaction is indictment 241187. It was the murder of Cornelius James Nelson on January 14th, 1991. On April 17th, 1992, the defendant admitted his guilt, pled guilty to voluntary manslaughter in front of Judge Barnes, and received a 13-year prison sentence. And again, this was in Atlanta. It involved co-defendants. I have the detective, who's retired now, to testify as to the significance of this. This was related to a dispute about money. Leonard Holland's confession. Leonard Holland. Can't see putting no closure on this, and that, and the third, and I'm still going to be in the electric chair. Detective. Come on, man. Leonard Holland. Just can't bear the thought. Detective. All right. Before prison, how many bodies we talking about? Leonard Holland. Before prison? Detective. Yeah. So that's over and done with since you've been to prison. Leonard Holland. Mm-hmm. Detective. Or a roundabout figure. Leonard Holland. 3. Detective. Before that? Leonard Holland. Before prison? 3. Detective. What years did they start? Leonard Holland. I don't. Yeah. Know the people? Detective. Who are the people? Leonard Holland. The one I actually served my time for? Detective. Who was that? Leonard Holland. Cornelius. Something on Westmont. That's where it happened at. Detective.
Part 1, Cornelius murder. It's in part 1 of the book, but it's a story that I was in high school when it first went down, but Shaheed did it. He shot him 3 times in the head, once while he was standing, twice after he fell. Then he spun around and shot Byron in his face. This is what Shaheed told me himself, how he shot him. He described this to me personally. He shot Byron in his face and Byron dove out of a window. And after that murder, I thought, because he had promised, because everybody knew about the beef, you got to read in the book, but he had promised that he would not touch those guys, that those guys were safe. But after he killed those 2 guys, we thank God Bernard survived. But after that, I knew he was a very dangerous person. I knew he was a very dangerous person, but after that, I felt like he had a problem. I started feeling like he was a serial killer.
The thing that happened the day I was shot came from out of nowhere. Guy by acquaintance of Rico wanted to sell jogging suits. He wanted I wasn't interested in purchasing them. Asked him to leave. My little brother Cornelius opened the door. He turned around and fired. Fired a gun, bullet striking me in my face. once the bullet struck me in the face, I have no clue what happened after that because I was severely injured. After that, I made my way to the back of the house just to take coverage, to the point where I seen my life fading away, so I had to rush for help. Took a chance and went back out the door. Didn't see my little brother on the ground. They say he was on the ground with a gunshot to his head. Didn't know about it, but I stumbled. I made my way to the neighbor's house next door, where I told him I've been severely shot, and that's when they called the paramedics, and that's all I remember from there.
Do I think Alameen ordered the murders carried out by Shaheed? Really can't speak on it, don't know for sure, but I know he had to know what was going on and what his team, security team, was doing in the community. Don't know if he could have stopped it. He could have, might have not. But whatever happened, it was really ugly. And yeah, man, that shit was really fucked up how that shit happened over there.
You know, they got their own beliefs or whatever because they're gonna watch out for one another, and then you got kids, so I haven't, you know, I'm answer your question, no, I haven't seen none of them neither. Did me or Alameen have a security squad? You know, I talked about a lot of things with him, mostly playing ball, but didn't even, he wanted me to join the Muslim ministry, but I did not. So, you know, a lot of the stuff I don't know about, I couldn't answer. Did he have what they call it, army? I can say I don't know.
Have I ever heard of Shaheed? Yeah, I heard of Shaheed. I knew Shaheed personally. Number of murders that Shaheed was involved in, really can't say. Word on the street, over 200. The news, police report might say less. Some folks say more, but word on the street, they was involved in over 200 some murder. Some solved, some unsolved, and but yeah, they killed a lot of people, fucked up a lot of families.
Do I believe that the state paperwork said that he was involved in all of those killings and more? You know, I see the document, but still, it's right up under my nose, and guess what? If it would have been a snake, it would have bit me. In the police report, from what I'm looking at and seeing, said that Shaheed did the killings or had something to do with them. My question, back to me, my question, do I believe that? You know, his name was out there flowing up, so I don't believe it.
In the crime-ridden streets of the West End, a series of homicides has emerged, all connected by a common thread that leads back to the Muslim community, headed by Jamil Abdullah Alameen, also known as H. Rap Brown. One prominent figure within this community is Ricardo Minor, who was arrested for the murder of James Farrell on March 16, 1990. Minor had close ties to Alameen and was ultimately convicted of the crime, despite one hung jury verdict. Shahid Abur Rahman, also known as Shahid or Leonard Holland, served as a witness against Minor. Rahman, reputed for his intelligence and cunning, is considered a close associate of Alameen. According to various sources, Rahman has been described as the mastermind behind the murders and someone to be feared due to his ruthlessness. A schematic diagram even depicts Rahman as part of Alameen's security team. Rahman himself was later arrested and imprisoned for a murder charge. During his time in prison, the FBI approached him for questioning. Surprisingly, Rahman was granted parole and swiftly returned to the West End area. It is worth noting that Rahman became a paid FBI informant after his release from prison. While on parole, Rahman recruited young black males from the West End to engage in illicit activities such as gun running, selling bulletproof vests, robbing drug dealers, and providing violent security for the Muslim community. Notably, a common bond among Rahman's recruits is their connection to New York City, either through their origins or their family ties.
Before Alameen got arrested for shooting the two cops, I've been knowing Alameen ever since I was 11, 12. I killed my first goat in that backyard. He raised me. raised the whole community. If you was over at that time, he was a stand-up guy, protect the community, did well in the neighborhood, and can't say nothing bad about it. But I do know the security team came down here and just goddamn fucked up the whole West End with the killing left and right, everybody. Why do I believe the Muslims turn a blind eye to all the killing and robbing in the community by Alameen security team? I can't really speak on it, don't know why, but word on the street was Shaheed was hired here, brought down to Atlanta to protect the neighborhood at Alameen. For the neighborhood and the community know, that's what we heard and that's what we accepted and respect. Alameen was cool, never disrespected the neighborhood, brought good to the neighborhood at some point, but it seemed like when his security team came down, the whole neighborhood changed. The murder rates went up.
Kids, that's who he recruited. He recruited, you had to be at least 10, 11, 12, all the kids. He recruited all the Muslim kids and he got them to kill people. He would actually pull up. I had a neighborhood. He would actually pull up back in the days before he went to jail for any murder. He would pull up. Might be a young guy of 12. He said, get out of the car. He said, y'all got some beef? He's like, I got somebody want to pop his chair. That means he wanted this nigga to go kill somebody for him. It was normal for him to pull up and ask, do we got beef? And he have a little young shooter, 12 years old, at the most, like Assad. He recruited Assad when he was like 9, maybe younger. 9 years old. With him every day. You would never ever see Shaheed without a young boy with him. Never. I don't think I never seen him pull up nowhere in the neighborhood, period, by himself. That ain't strange. I know why, because he's a very scary person now. When it comes to his life, he take all precautions, but he turned out very young kids to kill. He taught them how to kill at a young age. If anybody would have knew that this motherfucker was a paid FBI informant, I don't think they'd have been around him like that. Yeah, so I bought my first AK from Shaheed. I probably like 17, 18 while I was going through that beat. I never forget, I said, how in the hell we get guns like this? I'm talking about it was like a beautiful gun. The wood grain with a knife on the tip. I'm telling you, me and Lee went half on. We were good friends. I told you we went half on our AK-47 when we were like 17, 18 years old. I bought a box of guns from him before. I done had Muslims knock on my door in the middle of the night with boxes of guns, man. No lie, I can't count them. I'm talking about guns, rifles. Yeah, we bought it from him. Everybody in the West End, or everybody who wanted guns in Atlanta, just like they wanted weed in Atlanta, they came to the West End. They would eat, the drug dealers would come, they want a pistol. I said, okay, what kind you want? They might say a Mac 11. I know a Mac 10. The Muslims sell Mac 10 for $250. I sell it for $300, just like I did dope. In 1 second, I have a Mac 10 on the front porch. And then I told y'all the stories. How weird is it? Me and this nigga used to go to gun shows. Look, he'll pay FBI informant. I promise you, me, him, and Will, we used to go to gun shows and buy AKs and all type of shit. What was the age of that then?
Did I ever hear rumors that he had a security up here? I heard music, but he said, she said, so I didn't ever ask him that question. But as far as I know, I'm on the blind side. Come to be a conspiracy because a lot of people had to start hanging out right in front of the store, and also that, with the fancy cars he started driving in, and that started to be real noticeable. But as far as me just seeing him with it, I never have seen him with it, so I have heard talk that he was a big drug dealer.
Which encompasses his persona, his idiosyncrasies, his nuances, his methodology, the way that he does things. In my professional opinion, I think Leonard Holland had the type of childhood that is reminiscent of the very nature of a sociopath. I think he was cruel to animals. I think he was the kind of person that would get into a fight with another person and not just fight for respect, but fight for the mere pleasure of watching the other person be in agony and pain. There's a difference. If two guys get into a fight and usually in normal circumstances, they're fighting each other for temporary anger. And then once they get in the ring and box, subliminally speaking, once they get in the ring and box, then the anger subsides, and usually 2 or 3 days later, they're back to being friends again. But when you attack a person and you enjoy watching them be in agony and misery as you're carrying out the attack, that is an entirely different ballgame. That is an entirely psychological disorder. It is not normal to watch your brother or your sister be tortured in their last moments of life carried out by your hand. That's not normal. That's not normal at all. They also tend to do very poorly with the opposite sex when they are young and they are matriculating through elementary, junior high, and high school. Now, there is a profound difference in those who come up in the drug game and in the street game versus homicidal tendencies of sociopaths who end up becoming serial rapists and serial murderers. Okay, what type of person would actually commit these kinds of acts and murders and belligerent acts of violence and then confess? That answer is simple. The first, actually, two things come to mind when I answer that question. The first is when he was committing the acts, there was no remorse whatsoever. Once the acts were committed and now that he is facing, or he has faced, now that he has faced the consequences of all of his actions throughout the years, now he is wanting to clear his soul. Now he wants forgiveness. Now he wants to rid his soul of all of the psychological dirty laundry that he has carried for so many years. And as a result of it, he's wanting to confess his sins, so to speak. But when he was actually committing those situations, there was no remorse. For you to murder 50 people, there was certainly no remorse.
The defendant repeatedly confessed to Detective Render that he committed the homicides and shootings for which he was convicted, as well as other crimes. These admissions, initiated by the defendant from jail, are separate from the statements made at the time of his arrest, which the state does not intend to use in its primary case. Instead, the state plans to introduce these later conversations. The oral details provided by the defendant align with those in the tagged statements previously handed over, and they also encompass additional offenses. The state will use the conversations initiated by the defendant about his past related shooting convictions, 25570, Z5569, Z41187, and the ongoing investigation. The defendant claimed to be Jamil Al-Amin's top lieutenant, committing earlier crimes to dominate the drug trade in the West End area. He stated that federal law enforcement released him from jail to spy on Jamil Al-Amin, also known as H. Rap Brown, and that he committed these crimes to regain street credibility, given his past incarceration for murder and the need to disprove any suspicion of being an informant. The state intends to present this testimony to demonstrate motive, not to illustrate bad character. Therefore, it is believed that others would perceive him as an informant unless he committed serious crimes. This rationale explains why Shahid Abdul Radman was released from prison after serving less than 2 years for murder and aggravated assault, and was permitted to commit further killings, ostensibly to maintain his undercover status.
Because all this we talk about is public record. Anybody can go and get it and read the same paperwork we got. But we know for a fact that Shahid was a paid FBI informant when he was released from prison in late 93 or early 94. He was paid to get evidence on Jamil Al-Amin, we know that. But no one was ever arrested for nothing, none of the evidence he ever brought. Nothing ever came of none of that investigation. So we're just gonna leave it at that. That's the obstacle. How you gonna charge anybody, a paid FBI informant, for murders that you wanted to set the Iman up for? That's the obstacle. That's why nobody never been arrested for none of it. See, the biggest thing is, who let him out of jail? You know, y'all know who let him out, and the one question I want to know, the agent, you ain't got to tell me his name, was the agent white or black? I'm asking you. He's a white guy.
My name is Byron Bernard. I go by Bernard, native of Georgia, born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. Come from the West End, the west side of town. My opinion about the synopsis due to the West End homicides is very disturbing. It's degrading with the justice system of how they can let this continue on with random and killings constantly without no justice. It's a horrible situation. I feel the system let me down, let my brother down. I feel the system against me. I can go on and on, but for the most part, it's heartbreaking to see it wasn't actually justice served on behalf of what took place with the murder of my little brother. No, I don't feel right. I feel discouraged about him receiving 18 months, and my brother's life was priceless. My life is priceless. All this for nothing. Only thing they got was a body, that's it. Took a life. I'm totally against it. I feel horrible. I feel something needs to be done. How could you let a murder out on the street and continue on and work for you? It's disgusting. You're horrible, you're wicked. I need to see justice brought on that note alone. And then, no one ever informed me about that, about Shahid being released. From no detectives, no court system, it was just thrown under the rug.
Yes, I have seen the synopsis of the West End homicide. Not knowing that he was a paid FBI informant of killing my son, Samuel Lee Sawyer, I don't quite get it, so I don't like it. No, I don't. What I didn't know is that Shahid was released. He was in prison, and he was released by the FBI after 18 months. About Shahid being released after the 18 months, and after all these years, I never had any closure or anything about what's going on. I was told that he was the one supposed to have murdered my son. Why he's in prison, I have no idea. And then my thing is, he was in prison, but nobody they say they had him for some other charges, but not for that. not for pulling the trigger on my son. Some years ago, like I say, when that first article came out about him confessing to the 12 people then, when he was 40 years old. You know, that right there puzzled me because, you know, I goes to the people that's supposed to be handling the case, College Park Police Department, goes to them and try to find out, why do I have to bring this to you when you could have brought it to me? College Park could have brought it to me. Justice prevailed. What would I like to see done after reading the synopsis? I would like to see justice prevail. I would like to see more than I saw in the past, more than I've been told. I would like to know the truth. If Shaheed is telling the truth, let us know. The mothers that done lost their sons, the mothers that's been going through this for years and years without their sons.
I'm Lucille Kil, author of From the West End of Pakistan, Missing and Murdered Drug Dealers, and author of From the West End of Pakistan, Black Lives Don't Matter. These books are based on the story behind my documents. It's the story behind the documentary. It's the story behind how Fulton County DA's office, Paul Howard mainly, tried to hide this for years. How he never told about a confession of a serial killer in our city who confessed to over 24 murders and was never given a news conference to the loved ones. They didn't deserve a news conference, I guess. But if somebody killed 10 dogs and called and confessed, it would be a news conference. This guy murdered and confessed to killing over 24 people and was never prosecuted for not one of the murders he confessed to. And not one mother was told what happened to her child. This is the reason why I write these books. This is the reason why I do these documentaries. I think these mothers need answers. I think the loved ones need answers. And I think the public in general needs answers to why none of the mothers was notified that an FBI informant murdered their loved ones. That's why I write the book, to get closure on this chapter. Because in the book, it gives you the reason why they could never tell this. They could never let the mothers know that they released a serial killer knowing he was a killer and they killed their loved ones. That's why it's been a secret for 30 years. So please support me and help me get this story national news, world news.
If you suspect that your loved ones were victims, please reach out to getclosure2024@gmail.com. The following victims will be profiled in the forthcoming second part, hoping their stories will bring peace and closure. May they rest in peace, and let's pray for a resolution for their families. Triple homicide victims: Jacqueline Johnson, black female; Marlon Sadler, black male; Antonio Wyatt, black male. Date: murders occurred June 3, 1993. Weapons used: 9mm and .38 caliber. Barbara Ford, 29, white female. Date: murder occurred February 4, 1995. Location of murder: 319 Oak Cliff Road. Weapon used: unknown. Barrett Washington Jr., aka Quantavious Kelly, black male. Date: murder occurred March 2, 1995. Location of murder: Sloan Circle, North Custer Avenue. Weapons used: .45 automatic Colt pistol or .44 caliber and .22 or .25 caliber. Carl Von Wilson, black male. Date: murder occurred April 28, 1995. Location of murder: 1195 Lucille Avenue. Weapons used: 9mm. Sammy Sawyer, Lee, black male. Date murder occurred July 5, 1995. Location of murder, 4631 Herschel Road. Weapon used, unknown. Clarence Poon, black male. Date murder occurred November 24, 1995. Location of murder, 453 Holderness Street. Roderick Fulton, black male. Date murder occurred December 16, 1995. Location of murder, 1053 Cascade Circle. Weapon used, a knife and baseball bat. Andre Lane, black male. Date murder occurred January 1st, 1996. Location of murder, 845 York Avenue. Jamie James, Lee, black male. Date murder occurred July 23rd, 1996. Location of murder, 405 Atwood Street. The murder of Perry Miller and Tommy Warren, 2 black males. The victims were shot and their bodies were stuffed in a trunk near 1935 Childress Drive, Atlanta, Georgia. Date of offense. The victims went missing on February 27, 2003, and were found on March 25, 2003. Disposition: open. We share this tragic story with you, our viewers, with great care and responsibility, striving to provide closure and healing to the families impacted. Shahid is currently serving a life sentence, without parole, for the murder of a fellow Muslim, James Jones, aka Rafi.